what I want to do today is really step back a bit. It's not about Windows Phone. It's not about Microsoft. I think it's about what you guys do, which is creating great products and getting out there to either in your company or to consumers. But the big idea for me is how do we build ecosystems, and what are some of the things we've learned in the last year in terms of building an ecosystem. So hopefully you find that interesting, and there's a little takeaway at the end about what you can do for your world. So to get started, there's probably three things in terms of building an ecosystem that I want to really emphasize today. One is it's changing. It's the way we build ecosystems is not just make a product and then get a lot of apps. In some ways, building ecosystems require us to think more about who the consumer is, be it in the corporate world or in the consumer world. You have to involve your customers. And I think that's a big part of what we've learned in the last year. How do you get your customers to be part of the process? The other part, I think, is building not just the customer, but actually building a community. And what does that mean? How do you build a community for the product that you make? And then lastly, I think for the future of design, community or participatory design, how do you actually extend your product through the community and let the community be part of the design process? So those are the three things that hopefully you'll take away in this little conversation of mine. So, and as I said, it's great to be part of something such as Windows Phone, but really, I think we are in this kind of very, very exciting time in terms of where technology is going. Not just technology, but culture. That mobility and information and the ability to instantly get something on your device about your world, that's really transforming all of us. And I think those are the things that makes what we do really exciting. So this is a talk. It's a conversation. This is our Twitter. If you have, I definitely want to hear what you guys are thinking, what you guys are working on. So please feel free to follow us or send messages to us on Twitter. But like I said, when we started on 7, rebuilding Windows Phone, we thought, hey, let's make a great product. But we knew that wasn't just what you had to do. There was a lot more than just making a UX or designing a phone. That in some ways, the world has changed just in the last 4 or 5 years. This concept of creating apps or the app economy or the app ecosystem, that has really been around for the last 30 years. But in terms of mobility or information devices, that has changed a lot. Creating a marketplace, creating a place where consumers can actually get apps quickly, that has really transformed our industry. And that's a big shift for us. At the same time, the other shift I kind of talked more about with my team is that there are a lot of consumers. This phenomenon, it's not a US phenomenon, it's not a Europe phenomenon. I think this whole idea of apps and the world of apps has changed many's lives, and it's global, where everyone has this kind of insatiable need for having apps or having applications that fit their needs, because it's such a diverse world. And how do we actually design an ecosystem or create an ecosystem that can have this diversity for the world? So that's the other area that we're really trying to figure out. So apps, and apps is not applications, apps. It's changed the meaning. I think it used to be this idea of packaged software where you install it once and then it happens and that's it. But the idea of actually having that friction-free ability to get apps, that's what it's about. And how do you create that? And why is it important? Well, as you can see, the phenomenon on apps is it is that inflection point where the app economy has really taken off. And when you look at this chart, there's actually these inflection points. What creates that ecosystem? What creates that kick? And that's what we're trying to figure out. And in some ways, I think that's what we're still learning today. And how do you actually create that acceleration? And I don't need to emphasize again how important apps are, the work that you do to create apps. But there's nothing more important, as Robert here says, than creating apps. And how do we do that well? And for us, when we started, back to obviously the competition was very ahead of us. And we were looking at, wow, geez, there's a lot of work we have to do to move forward. And how do we do that? And these are the lessons that I want to speak to you about. Starting at this point in time, literally a year ago almost, to actually launch a product, start building an ecosystem. We learn a lot, and we learn that it's not that easy. That in some ways, in the old days literally 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, when you design a phone, as a designer, this is it. You create a phone, right? You just design it, make sure it works really well, make sure it makes a phone call, has a couple of features that a lot of users need, talk to your users. And you create a phone. What you usually do, you do a lot of advertising, you put it on a supermodel, and then you go sell the phone. That was it, right? Everyone's happy. You make a phone, you sell a phone, and then you say, hey, let's go make another phone. Let's go add some more features. And then what do? You put on another supermodel, and then you sell more phones. So that was it for design. It was easy. That was great. It was a very simple world in some ways. But it's changed. You can't just create a phone and advertise it and then sell it. In some ways, it's changed so much that the demand for mobile phones, it's a very complex market. It is about the ecosystem. It is about the carrier. It is about the marketplace. It is about how do you get apps. And you can't just create products and then launch it and expect consumers to buy it. What they're voting for is the ecosystem. They're voting for to be part of something bigger. And how do you create that? In one ways, traditionally, we create that kind of, I would say, following of products through designing iconic. As a designer, you want to create something that stands out. And traditionally, we would create iconic designs, be it something that designers all say, wow, I want to create the next amazing product. And you create something that's really iconic, a great product that stands for something. Or you create a whole new language, like Braun, that really speaks to a new value of design. And over time, you create these iconic products, and they stand over time, and people keep on buying it. So I think that's the traditional world, and it's worked really well. And these are timeless products. But in some ways, we can't do that anymore. In some ways, we have to also design digital icons. Oh, is that for me? Okay. That you have to also design digital icons that stands for something, to be bold, to stand out, because there is so many choices that it's not just about having a physical device, it's about also the digital icons have to stand out. And for us, there's a long history of digital icons, be it on a desktop, be it even, if you look at the metaphor of digital icons, I would say, in terms of personal devices, Palm really set the standard that today we're still following. If you look at, literally, this is, I think, back to '94. Now, this is what a personal device was. And you look at this, and you look at the screen. Actually, a lot of the metaphors, a lot of design elements are still with us today. To even today, in terms of social network, we're all striving to create more iconic experiences, like timeline view in Facebook. Or in Google, that simple search bar, that's iconic. Likewise, in Bing, how do we bring that to mean something to the user? To even Netflix, creating these very iconic digital experiences. I think that's one way to start. Make sure that the user can understand, hey, wow, there's something more. There's something that's really iconic that I want to be part of. So creating digital iconic experiences was one of the key things that we aspired to when we started Windows Phone 7. And hopefully you see that in the work that we've built. But icons are not enough, as you know. I think creating a great product, that's, like I said, that's really just a start. And it is about the ecosystem. So once we create an iconic phone, iconic UX, you say, hey, what do I do next? And creating an ecosystem, it's kind of like, I compare it to, I always tell them, it's like ecosystem, what does that mean? And then there's kind of like the tentacle, and being a tentacle part, I'm not going to talk a lot of technology, but it is kind of like that sea of life, that rich pool, that rich aquarium, or that rich pool of fish and coral, and you want to create this. This is my perfect view of what a great ecosystem, where everyone can coexist and there's rich diversity. There's a sea of life, like I said. And how do you create that? That's not easy. And like I said, you could start with creating a great phone, but that's just a start. You want to create the rich diversity where it's not just about one product. It's about taking that product and shifting it, or making it even more than what it is, or even making it more personal for the consumer. So that's an example of that is Mini, and they've done an amazing job. Or you look at an ecosystem that traditionally most people don't think of this as an ecosystem, but I do as a product person. You know, being part of, hey, I love Canon, and I buy Canon lens. I buy the whole ecosystem. That's what I mean by ecosystem. To Twitter, this is a map, almost like a heat map of Twitter activity. How do you actually create that ecosystem where the whole network can be part of a larger community? To things like obviously social networking like Facebook, to user-generated content like YouTube, but even to actually having the end consumers be part of the design and development process, like in Kickstarter, where consumers can vote or actually buy a share of a new product so that before it actually gets created. How do you actually create those kind of ecosystem and actually kickstart an ecosystem? And if you do it well, then you get what we all strive for, and hopefully Kai and everyone here talk about today. You guys are all part of this virtuous cycle of that ecosystem, and how do we work together to create that ecosystem is probably the next couple of days' conversation, and that's something for us to think about. That as we start from scratch, it wasn't about creating the iconic phone and just say, go make some apps. I think that's way too easy. I think anyone can do that. That you had to create the iconic phone that, one, people can love, but also people can extend. That you want the community, to be part of that design process. That it's not about just making it one size fit all and then letting you go create apps and say, good luck. It is working together to create that ecosystem. And when we started, this was like, this is my image of what we were like a year ago. It was like we had, one fish. Like, literally, we had no apps. And that's very scary. We had to go create that. And the feeling I had a year ago was like this. It's like, hey, where is everybody? And that's what we're starting from. But you wanna make sure people come to your party. And it's great to actually be here a year, from a year ago, and actually see all of you to be part of something that we created, and we want to keep on building, so that we get this rich sea of life. So I'm pretty excited in terms of how much progress we've made in that short 12 months. And with the phone, we learned literally 7 lessons, and hopefully these lessons, they're not like rules. They're really, I would say some of it was painful lessons. Some of those lessons we're still learning. Some of those lessons we're still learning how to make better. But they're just lessons. And I think some of these lessons can actually definitely apply to your world. And definitely after this talk, and we could share some more, maybe listen to what your lessons are in terms of building the ecosystem. The first lesson that I think most people kind of forget is when you build an ecosystem, you got to ask yourself why. Right? Does the world need another ecosystem? You could say, well, maybe, I guess. But it is kind of that hard question you ask yourself. Do you fundamentally believe in something different? Do you want to stand for something different? Do you want to make the world better? If I create an app, I don't just create an app because someone else did it. I want to create an app because, well, I think it's better. I think I have a better idea. It's a better mousetrap. It's a better way. And we here together, we all want to be better because we want to make things that enrich people's lives or make your company work better. But it is creating an idea where you can actually let people join you to be part of something. So give people something to join. That's the first one. And for us, we started out saying, hey, Windows Phone was not just about making another phone. That fundamentally we had a different point of view about what makes a great phone experience. And that's where we decided to develop Metro, and Arturo and Karina from my team here will spend the next 2 days talking about UX in Windows Phone, and you could definitely check out some of those sessions. But we felt, we believe, well, not just believe, we made a better experience, and that's what people want to join our ecosystem. That there was a shift in terms of design to get back to information, shaping information, allowing users to find information quickly. That was the idea behind the design. It wasn't about, hey, making a Microsoft product or me having a better design, we felt that in the interaction design world, that there needed to be a shift to get back to the roots of information design. How do you present information to user and make it easy for them to use? That was our job. And we felt in the smartphone world, at least in that ecosystem, there was a better way. And we took a lot in terms of modern Swiss graphics, and definitely being in a Nordic country, it's a great place to be in terms of appreciating international design and Swiss typography, getting back to a grid, getting back to the basics of design, where I think interaction design and information design has kind of lost its way, and creating a diversity where people can take our ideas and apply it to their own. And that's what I mean. You could join to be part of this ecosystem, but you could take Metro and the work we do and create your own apps with it. And that's what's really important. And ultimately, this is the only big word I'm going to use, and you guys can look it up what it means. But this idea of UX design, shifting away from, I think, traditionally what we call skeuomorphism, big word, is this idea of everything is rendered into the real world, into your phone or into your desktop. This idea of like, I need to create a virtual garbage can to get rid of my files. That's a very analog way of looking, or having a paperclip when you email something. So that shows you have an attachment. That's when for some reason, or not, probably for a lot of reasons, UX design has gone to this world of creating analog representation. And I think we went too far, and I think skeuomorphism is the problem of UX design today. So that was the idea behind our design. The second lesson that we learned is we can't just make a product and get it out there and say, hey, it's better. You got to have a conversation. People have to understand. Like in this conversation, hopefully we're having a conversation next day or two about why is it better and how could we make it better or continue to make it better. Start that conversation with your community. And we do a lot on our team. Definitely check out our Windows Phone developer blog. It's a great source of information. But it's not just us sending you information. It's about listening too. We actually have a feature poll here saying, hey, what would you like to improve? And we actually use it. When we design the next release, we go through the list and say, hey, a lot of requests, especially in the IT crowd, hey, we got to have security. We got to have these features. We take in all this, and we have that conversation. And you got to do that in terms of making a better product or having people join you. And just having this conversation, I think being out here, it makes me feel more connected to the community, that we're not just building a product for ourselves, that we're building a product together, and that's really important, to be part of that conversation. And for the design team, like our Twitter, we got some great following, we got some really good feedback, some bad feedback, which actually I like that too, what things work, what don't. But it is, I think that's the nature of design today. It is having this open conversation. And we attend a lot of these sessions, and not because we like to present, but because we want to hear from you. So the third one, I think that's the other lesson that it's still a very hard lesson for us to create the balance. Constraints versus being open and just do whatever you want. I think when you design an ecosystem, there's always that balance of, hey, you want a consistent experience, right? You want a user to come in and say, well, boy, if I use the phone, I should know how to use every app that's on the phone. I don't have to read a manual. It's very consistent. All the tools allow app developers to create something that's very similar in terms of the navigation. Usability it's very delightful. It's very usable. But also, you want to keep it opening where you can have that diversity, just like in that sea of life. You want to have many different types of apps. You want people to experiment. And I think that was the balance we're still trying to work on, and we're still evolving. That the reason we create a very structure or constraints is because you want everything to work. A lot of times you look at, hey, it's just one app, but reality is it's all connected. How your apps works on the phone affects how it works in the background. It affects how it works with other services. It affects how it works on the desktop. It affects how it works on the tablet. This is the world where everything has to be connected and needs to be connected. And when you create an ecosystem, you have to make sure that it works well. And just like updating your phone, once you update something, the repercussion of updating something and how it affects the app ecosystem, obviously it's big. And how do you think through that? So we've been creating a lot of constraints, not because we feel it's like, hey, we don't want to do something, because we want to do it well. And you want to do things that are measured and predictable and high performance. So that's a big lesson for us to create that balance. The other part that I think a lot of people don't appreciate or don't take time is to create that consistency for the user. And actually, where we have a lot of tools that we give to our developers, to our community, that we have a very structured grid so that things line up, so that when people know, hey, here's where the button should be, then or here's where the icon, or here's where to swipe, or those are consistent, and it's throughout the system. So it makes it easy for our consumers, for our end user, to use our product, and that's a good thing. The other part that we try to create constraints, but also leave it open, is have principles. And Arturo and Karina will share some of those principles this afternoon. But principles allow users to, see a very coherent product that when someone designs the apps and they follow these principles, it feels like it belongs. And that's what you want. You want our end user to feel like the whole product comes together, the apps feels right, feels like it belongs on the phone. That's the other part around why we have these principles. And definitely we'll share a lot more about that. The fourth lesson, and this is, in some ways, this is both hardware and software, and to me, it's just product. But planting seeds. How do you show the ecosystem what is good and what is bad, or not just what could be? And you have to plant those seeds early and do it well. Planting seeds is about, hey, here's how you design. We actually work with Facebook, we work with Netflix to create the best experience possible, taking some of our learnings as we design the phone. And you want to plant those seeds on what works really well, how do you use a panel, when it's appropriate, how do you get the best performance. You have to create these seeds so others can take advantage of it. Likewise, I think the amazing thing about Apple and the ecosystem is their ability to create that, seed something and then the whole ecosystem just takes off. They created the speaker not just for themselves, because they want to show what the ecosystem can do, where eventually you don't have to create this anymore. Others start creating it. That's how you seed the ecosystem. And those are the things that we're still learning. And I think this one's probably a no-brainer, or it's very straightforward for everyone here. Make it easy to build and create those great tools. And we're fortunate to work with some amazing technologists, developers at Microsoft that create some of the best tools in industry. So it's this one, for me, it's really straightforward. But creating tools there's also another way to look at how tools and how do you build on. How do you actually create a product, an ecosystem that others can extend? I just like using camera because I love camera examples, but it's like having that little hole in the camera that you could mount a tripod or accessories, and you let other people create products for it. That's what I mean by creating tools or letting people extend it, like the Nano watch. Make it easy so that other people can build on it. And obviously the case is. But what happens is, if you look at the Kickstarter, Apple is amazing in that sense. Once it seeds and it makes it easy to build on, it generates a lot of interest in the ecosystem. It just makes it easier for people to be part of it. And I think that's a big lesson for us to continue doing better as we move forward. The one that I think all of us kind of worry a lot about is change. Changing things for the sake of change is bad, unless it's good. And when do you change things? Like I said, updating a phone has repercussions, but it's not just the update. There's a lot of requests saying, hey, how about if you add this, or how about if you change this? And we spend a lot of time thinking about, wow, what is the impact of change in the ecosystem? And in some ways, not just to focus on a competition, but if you're going to create a touch device, but your entire ecosystem is based on keyboard, that's a big change. It impacts your ecosystem. Your apps won't work. It doesn't work well. And you have to think through it. And a lot of times, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of I would say, pressure to make change, but you really have to think through why those changes are better and how does it impact the ecosystem. So that's another area that we spend a lot of. And obviously, if you've seen like iPhone 4 and 4S, the reason it's harder and you don't want to change things is to preserve the ecosystem and maintain that compatibility. And obviously, the dirty word or the bad word is fragmentation. So that's a difficult lesson, and I think hopefully we can still be better in terms of creating change. That's good. 7, the last lesson. Maybe this is very simple but overused, but we're in this together. The only way we'll be successful if we're all successful, and that's what an ecosystem is about. That sea of coral, if the coral doesn't live, then the fishes will die, and then there's no life. And we're in this together. I'm here not because, hey, I want to just tell you ideas. I want to make sure we're all successful, that we're all building an ecosystem together. And it is about not just making it Microsoft or your individual part, but all of us to be better. And today and the next couple of days with Hello Helsinki, the idea to share what you're working on and share with the community of developers, technologists, designers, to co-create, to make something better, I think that's the key part of the message. So, and this is not a lesson, this is more my own reflection. So those are the 7 lessons. Hopefully you found that useful. And the other part I want to kind of talk more about is this idea of designer. And there's a lot of myth around like, hey, you create the phone. But in some ways, I don't really create the phone. It is about us, creation. So I'll make sure it's not about me telling you about what is good design. Good design is about the team. You have a team, you have people you work with. You could be an individual developer, but at the end of the day, you're still working on a product that an end user wants. But it is about creating that good team. We have an amazing team that builds Windows Phone, that designs it. And we have great partners like Nokia, that we're all working together to make something great. So it's about the team, obviously. But the other part is, for us, what's even better, it's when this community, actually works together to make something better. And I think that's the opportunity we have today to do that. But even better still is customers. I think that's the best. That's when you get your customers engaged. We want people to line up for your product, for your experience, for the things that you make. How do you create that? That's the best way, is to get your customers involved. And I think that's something that we're continuing doing a lot more of. How do we bring the customers into our design and development process? So, a lot of people look at bringing the customer into design or having this idea of kind of this co-creation with your customer as something that's a threat. But you have to kind of get rid of that. So. Good. So we see that actually the co-creation as an opportunity to make things better, but also co-creation is, if you let the community and the end customer be part of it, they're vested. They want to be part of the ecosystem. And once they're part of the ecosystem, then that's when you get that virtuous cycle where people want to support you. They don't just want, they will support you. And they will be loyal, and they will. There's nothing better than a community of loyal customers. And design is one of those things. Here's a quote from Brenda, where it's all about the end user, right? Until somebody starts using it and living it or using it in their daily lives. But we like to think slightly different. That design isn't finished until actually the community starts designing it. You start making Metro, you start making apps, and then end users can start co-creating too. So that's the big shift for us. And here's some examples of where the community takes over. Obviously, in the PC industry, there's a lot of modders. But even like in traditional, I would say, fixie bikes, there's a lot of big, rich communities. To traditional community of loyal users. My big example, this is very American, but Harley Davidson, there's such a loyal community of users. To connect, we're actually doing a lot more to create or co-create. We've launched the Connect SDK. This is an example of a company. They make prosthetics. They use Connect not as a game, actually. They use Kinect as a scanner. They scan people's limbs to make prosthetics. And that's something that we, Microsoft, would have never thought of. But the idea of actually... Is the time's up? But this idea of creating something that community can take over, that's really important. And it is a start that hopefully you see Metro on the phone, you see Metro on the tablet, and on PC, that we're really just starting. And it was only a year ago where we launched Windows Phone, and the jumpstart, I think, working with Nokia, we're really excited that the ecosystem and building that energy to be part of this, to be here in Helsinki, to start to see where this ecosystem can go. So those 7 lessons, we'll post this up there, and I want to hear your lessons to you about what you've built in terms of your app, or how you got your app to take off or to kickstart it. And like I said, these are just lessons that we've learned. There's a lot more lessons I'm sure we could learn from you. But let's share, let's learn more. And to kind of give you insight on why I think these lessons are important to you, I want to reemphasize that the challenge for us is not to, hey, just go make another app. The challenge is apps, you have to care and feed your apps. You have to create, it's not just about making a phone, it's about making your product live. And obviously, app usage today, a lot of people download an app, they don't use it after 3 or 4 days. Why is that? It's because it's not part of the ecosystem. It's not sustainable. Can we actually change that? Some are better, obviously. Some people actually use, entertainment or information-driven apps or utility much more. But even in the IT world, you want people to use your app all the time. And how do you do that? And those are the lessons that I think we can apply. And if you look at just applying these lessons and something I look forward to, it's just, we've been working with Spotify for a while. They've done an amazing job of creating an ecosystem around their app. Back to those 7 lessons, they gave something people can join. Join Spotify, be part of something. But also starting a conversation. And I say starting a conversation is they actually let people share playlists. Think about that. Like, without that, how do you actually share and have conversation within the community? And then making it easy to build on, being plugged into Facebook, obviously. Wow, of course. But thinking about how do you actually extend that and how do you build on Spotify, I think that's a big lesson. And then obviously the other one is once you're part of the ecosystem, the music industry, the Spotify, Facebook, us, we're all in it together. And that's when it really takes off and sustains itself. So hopefully you find some of these lessons or apply some of these lessons to your app. I'm really excited to be here, not because, like I said, it's not about presenting to you, but it's really about listening to you and sharing and learning from you about what are your lessons that we could share with the community. So hopefully you found this interesting, and hopefully you'll take some of these lessons and apply it to what you're working on. But first of all, I want to thank you for spending the next day here, and definitely take advantage of some of the sessions, and grab me or send me a Twitter message about what you want to see more in Windows Phone, what do you want to see in the ecosystem, where do you see our partnership going. But like I said, we're in this together. I'm very excited to be here, and I look forward to today. So thank you very much.